Live 7 o'clock Thursday. Garden Old, no inside info, no contacts, no problem. Welcome everyone to the Garden Old Show. We're happy to have you. Vince, how are you today?
I'm doing great. I was just going to say, Ryan, we had a little problem last week, but it looks like YouTube is caught up.
YouTube has caught up indeed. It's been a little delayed on showing that it's actually, streaming as of late, but we're good to go. But a lot going on right now in the Florida State world. We're about ready to get this thing on. We're about ready to kick off in Ireland just a week away now. We got a lot coming up. We have mediation that's been happening all over during this week, which you've heard nothing about. We'll get into a little bit of the scuttlebutt around that. We have, Vince, some interesting news around Robert Griffin III, and we also have Doug Rohan joining the show live here in about 10 to 15 minutes. So a packed show. Let's start with, though, Vince, a little bit of unpacking, some window dressing. I'm assuming you haven't watched. We're going to skip the Lost conversation. So I'm going to guess that you haven't watched any more.
I have not, but I have been playing the video game.
Oh, the college football video game.
Yes, I've been playing the game, and I've lost last night.
Who'd you lose to, though?
I don't want to say the words out loud, but
Miami?
I lost last night. No, I lost to Florida last night.
Oof.
And overtime.
What was the record heading into that game?
I'm playing quick games.
Okay.
So I don't have a record yet. I'm not doing a season yet. I'm just really practicing and trying out some plays. I did not. I think offensively, I'm doing quite well. Defensively, I haven't really solved some of the things that I need to solve.
Indeed, Vince. I can tell you one thing. Now that I'm going into the third season in Dynasty. I have halfway through the second season. I fully transitioned halfway through that season into taking control and user controlling the safety. I think I said that in the last episode.
Yeah.
I am to the point now where the strafe button, which is L2 on PlayStation, is everything. And that strafe button, I usually play a little bit more shallow in the tree than as deep as it likes to keep you. So I play usually around the 10 yards out mark. And the only time I ever get beat if it's a really, really convincing play action, but I can't tell you how many run stuffs I had where I've called run. I can't tell you how many user picks I've had, but I just finished another undefeated season heading to play right now against Georgia in the first round of the playoffs.
Well, that's good for you. I'm going to try what you suggested there. In the meantime, let's just remind people that if you are currently watching and you have not hit the like button on the YouTube video, please do that. And if you have not already subscribed, please do that. We've got a new overlay here to kind of remind people to do that and spend a little bit of time on that. Hopefully it looks good. I think it looks good from our end. But like and subscribe and share it out on your Twitter feed and Facebook, wherever you go. Grab that link and share it out. We're trying to get some more people in here tonight because Doug is about to come on. And we haven't had Doug here in a while for a number of different reasons. And they're all good reasons, by the way. And he can talk more about that when he gets here. But we want more people in here to enjoy the goodness that is going to be Mr. Doug Rohan here in probably about 5 or 10 minutes.
Mike Bartz has a nail on the head. Remember, hit the like button and subscribe, family. Let's say hi to a few other people. I haven't seen this name in the chat yet. Peter Shields. Hey, go Noles. Ready for the season. I'm excited for it, man. Peter, we're going to get
Welcome, Peter.
We're going to get into it all. Long time listener of the Garden Old Show, Ed Lemix. Absolutely. We are locked and loaded for football. We're going to be having a ton of news as far as Ireland and what the Garden Old Show will be participating in. So stick around. And Cornelius Green, Florida State to the Big Ten. We sure hope so. And I'm gonna give you my opinion on the oddity that is the absolute silence during mediation this entire week. They are mediating this week, and you have not heard a leak, not a story, nothing. And that tends to indicate something to me, and I'll give you my take later on in the show. But Vince, let's start off with a light softball talking point before Doug Rohan joins. Let's talk Robert Griffin III. Last night, I actually retweeted. You saw, I think everyone saw the post he made defending Florida State. Like, hey, we weren't crying. We were disappointed that our star quarterback went down, and we still won despite having second and then third string quarterback. And he really, really put himself, out there, and he has a few times. This isn't the first time on behalf of Florida State, and I'm sure total coincidence today that ESPN has fired Robert Griffin III. Vince, your take?
I try not to be a conspiracy guy, Ryan. I really, really do. But what else can you pick from this? It's not like he's terrible at what he does. He's actually kind of grown on me. I didn't actually really much care for his shtick, but over time, he actually does a pretty good job. And to see that happen today, not that long after, what he said, what he tweeted, it's hard to not have a conspiracy mind about that. Couple that with the fact that Samantha Ponder also gets let go. And we know, obviously, who she's married to. And it's not like Christian Ponder has kept his mouth closed about what happened with the snub as well.
Mm-hmm. All this in the week when the ACC is mediating with Florida State. That's interesting. A lot of my take on it, Vince. First of all, I've been a fan of RG3 and his commentary skills since probably season 2 of him doing it. Season 1, he was really a little rough around the edges, seemed uncomfortable in the first season, but since then has really come a long way. Very similar.
He was trying to overdo it a little bit. Like he was trying to be almost like a caricature. But once he found his groove, that's when I really started to enjoy it. And the fact that he's so energetic, and he's so enthusiastic, and he definitely provides great knowledge, and he also is able to critique without being, so over the top, negative, right? Which is what I like about him.
And he also played football, unlike someone like Paul Feinbaum, who's just nothing. My take on it, Vince, is I do think it's just a coincidence that they were like, oh, I really don't believe there's a conspiracy. It's fun to believe it. But the good news is, Vince, very similar to EJ Manuel, my feeling on him, how it's grown. I think they've both gotten better. First of all, Robert Griffin III, snazzy dresser. I always appreciate his shoes, the outfits. They always talk about it every broadcast. They'll be like,
oh yeah,
look at those shoes. Look clean pants right there. So it's always awesome. And I'm a fan of a well-dressed commentator that might be a little bit different than a certain ESPN college game day host that wears tank tops and a jacket.
Terrible.
But Robert Griffin III, thank you for defending Florida State. We didn't need you to. You're not the hero we asked for, but you might have been the hero we needed.
Here's the thing about that too. It's not like he said anything that wasn't true.
Yeah, he didn't say anything inflammatory.
He wasn't going, and we're fans, Ryan. You and I are fans. We're big time fans. We are fans so much that we decided to talk about this and have people join us in the conversation. But he didn't say anything that wasn't true. Anybody that is taking the other side of that has an axe to grind for whatever reason, or like, ear guy, it's all for clicks.
Yep.
He can't, Ryan, I have to ask you this question. could that person, and I hate even saying his name, it turns my stomach. Could that person really actually believe the things that he says?
No, absolutely not. No, he is just he knows what he is. If I was in his job, I'd probably be the same way. I'm just being honest with you.
Are you saying that if all of a sudden Garnet Knoll got picked up and went nationwide, worldwide, and you had someone, lining your pockets with coppers, many coppers, that you would stray from the straight and narrow of honesty and integrity?
Yeah, I would say Florida
You
doesn't.
just said yeah. You said yeah. Okay, I
Florida
got it.
should. Yeah, I would say something like Florida should be a Group of 5 team. They're not even a Power 5 team. Like I would say things like that because that's what they're paying me for. I do want to address one thing real quick, Vince. Mary writes money problems at ESPN. So hold on. I actually want to correct this. I don't subscribe to it, but I know how to use certain websites to get around paywalls. Disney posted their financial results recently in the last month. Here's the thing. Disney, the parent company of ESPN, is not doing well financially. However, the one area that has finally reached a profit in their streaming industry, that means the combination of Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus, ESPN actually got them into the green on their streaming services for the first time ever.
Mm-hmm.
So that package of Disney Plus and Hulu and ESPN Plus has been in the red, all three of those, since it launched. But for the first time, ESPN is actually in the green, which is a positive sign for the direct-to-consumer model that they are apparently working on. So I don't think there's money problems at Disney. Yes. I don't think there's money problems at ESPN anymore. I think there was. But I think a lot of this is them restructuring.
Yeah, I don't think that they have money problems per se, but I also don't think that they are just, cash heavy either.
No, yeah.
I think that, like a lot of businesses right now are trying to be smarter about, where they spend their money. They would be very smart to spend their money in letting Florida State get out of this ridiculous situation that we're in.
And Vince, I will say one thing. If you're trying to get out of a conference,
you're trying to get out of, or you're trying to help pay for some medical bills.
Yes, the ACC really at this point, if they had made a right decision, would have gotten someone who's willing to help them in their worst day. And that man is Doug Rohan. Let's go.
Listen,
to the
Doug,
show, Doug Rohan.
Doug Rohan, by the way, Doug, you are live in the Captain Black's Fishing Studios. How about that?
Love it. ACC could not afford me to help them on their worst day. I wouldn't take all of their money in the world for what they're trying to do.
Yeah, and Ryan's here saying that he would shirk his integrity for the right amount of money. And what you're saying, Doug, is you would not.
No, sir.
I love that about you, and I've known that about you for pretty much the longest time that we've known each other. So we haven't seen you in a few weeks.
Sorry about that.
No, that's okay. You've been doing things that are what good, upstanding American dads should do, and I applaud you for that. But today is August 15th.
It is.
And today is, I was going to call it the Ides of March or the Ides of August, but that's not accurate because the Ides of August are actually the 13th. But I didn't know that until about 20 minutes ago. Doug.
Yes, sir.
Get us up to date. People have been clamoring for what you know.
Well, for the people who thought that we would announce our departure before August 15th, I'm sorry to report that is not likely going to happen. And obviously it is possible that we get till midnight. But I've said from the beginning that this is 2 more seasons in the ACC situation, and that is likely coming to fruition in the next 4 hours or so, 5 hours or so. We are at the point of forced mediation, obligatory compulsory mediation. So that started this week. Not much happens. I actually have to say, I gave a brief blurb about mediation and how it works, but David McKenzie did go into an exhaustive, thorough rundown of the mediation process, and nothing that he said about the process was objectively wrong. Of course, he had to editorialize some of his comments talking about how strong the ACC's argument is and how nonsensical the FSU complaints are. So of course we're throwing that out, but the rest of it was a very good breakdown on how mediation works. And the bottom line is, yes, everybody did have to get together, and yes, we do have an assigned neutral that should be well versed on both complaints and both arguments, and that neutral should be able to talk to both sides from an independent third party perspective to hopefully give either or both of them a reality check. But that would require them to actually be willing to sit down at this time and have a conversation. And I'm not 100% certain that we're at that point yet.
I do have a question around that, Doug. We didn't have any specific dates. First of all, do you know a specific date of when potentially, they said next week, last week, right? So this week. What does that mean? Like, when will we know that a meeting took place, or will we not be informed of when these meetings take place? Because my thought process this whole week is really quiet for them. If they are mediating in any way, shape, or form, is it not uncommon in a case like this to have some leaks get out?
It is uncommon for leaks to get out in a mediation. Okay. The reason why is because the neutral in particular has a sworn obligation to maintain the privacy of the communication. In fact, they make a big show at the end of the mediation of tearing up all of their notes and showing both parties that they really are disposing of any notes that they've taken down. Especially a high profile case like this, a mediator would never get another job again if they were to compromise a situation. Could either party put out some information? Sure, that's certainly possible. But again, you're hurting yourself when you start disclosing some information. If the other side, let's say the ACC is describing a scenario in which they would be willing to talk about settlement or to talk about resolving this during a particular timeline, FSU wouldn't want to leak that information out because it might make the parties less likely to be able to reach an agreement. Likewise, the ACC wouldn't want to be, muddying the waters and messing things up more than what's in the pleadings and what's being put out there, because when it comes to mediation, that's where the PR campaign ends. Both parties know what it's going to take to get this matter resolved. There's nothing that airing any of the details would enhance or help either party.
I know, Doug, long ago, you were of the opinion that if we were going to hear anything, it would be after the 15th anyway, and before kickoff. You've said that many, many times.
I think every episode,
driven it home. Ryan and I, started hearing some things that possibly we could hear something, toward the end of July to mid-August time. Like you said, probably not going to happen, at least in maybe what we thought we might hear. It's like when people said we're going to hear something, I think everybody automatically assumed that it was going to be, we're done here, we're out.
I said that, but
what?
Ryan hoped that.
Yeah. So, but I guess my question is, if it's not that, what could come out? If our sources that were telling us we're going to hear something, what could that something be?
It's a great question. I think one of the big boulders is the football season. And so there's a question of do the parties view the football season as a distraction, as a complication, or is the football season an added tool in the negotiations? And I don't know what their perspective is. I don't know how they view it. If they're of the opinion that we want to get this resolved and not distract from the football season, then that was why initially my suspicion was that we would hear something before August 24th. So we're in a 9-day window where we would hear something. I don't know. I don't have a photographic memory of all of our conversations. I think the last few times we've spoken, at least how I feel today on August 15th, I think we're going to hear something before the February 1st,
Sure.
2025 deadline. So January after the season is kind of what I'm thinking of. Now, this is such a big deal that the parties don't get to meet once and decide, okay, let's get this knocked out. They would have to start negotiations in earnest now, even if they hope to get something done in
Right.
August and January. So that's why the mediation process was the kickoff to the settlement process.
Yeah.
And, whether or not they met should be something that's publicly available. I would like to think that both parties would either individually or jointly say, hey, we met on Wednesday. We had a great time. It was a good opportunity to sit down and look at each other without, a judge presiding over a hearing, and just reminded us that, both parties have an interest in seeing this resolved in a positive manner, something like that. That's
Yeah.
what we'd like to see. There's nothing obligatory for that to happen. There's no requirement for that to happen. That the parties met should be obvious to a couple hundred people, because multiple lawyers going to somebody's office to sit down and caucus. If they met for more than 15 minutes, they would have been in separate rooms. There'd be secretaries, there'd be other people in the building where the meetings took place. So there should be a couple hundred people that know if and when they met this past week. Again, the details are never going to come out. All we're going to hear from any mediation conference is, we have a deal and here's the deal. So I wouldn't be discouraged by not getting more information before today's date.
I do have a question on that, Vince.
Go ahead, Brian.
Before we go to the next point here. So would it be hypothetically, let's play the hypothetical game. I had someone ask me this, so I'm relaying the question. Hypothetically, mediation occurs. Let's say even if it's not in the next 2 weeks of an agreement, let's say it's a random day in the late September, some date, just random day, pick it. Could that agreement include potentially an exit, not in the 2-year window, but into next season if the agreement and it could supersede the deadline of August 15th?
Absolutely, yeah. There's no restriction on what the deal could be. The deal could be to play 3 seasons in the ACC, and that's what I had said early on. If I was advising the ACC on how to negotiate this, the parties want stability. The conference, the nation wants to know what is going to happen, so everybody else can start making their plans.
Mm-hmm.
So a situation where they said, okay, well, you're supposed to give us notice to give us a 2-year window, or at least more than a full 12 calendar month window. We'll give you a discount off whatever the number is in exchange for 3 years. That's something that they could absolutely be negotiating.
Brian, are there any questions from the chat there that would be relevant that we haven't already covered?
Yeah, I would say once a DC Lysol, that's funny, right? Once a settlement is reached, how long does FSU have to make a public announcement? I don't think they have to, right?
I don't have to, but I'd be hard pressed to think that they could keep it under wraps for even 24, 48 hours. I mean, it will be something that once there is an agreement, there will be a pretty short period of time for that public disclosure, unless, of course, part of that is embargoing the announcement to a certain date. Maybe ESPN has been in talks with with the ACC, and they want to work out something with that February 1st deadline. So Florida State can have their exit, Clemson can have their exit, but we don't want to announce that until March 1st or something along those lines. All of those terms are negotiable. And to your point, Ryan, absolutely. They could say, even though we're past August 15th, we're going to announce this January 1st or January 10th after the season is over, but we're only playing one more season because we negotiated a departure from the contract that we believe is invalid.
And this is the greatest question, I think, that is helpful for non-FSU homers who I've heard this asked again and again. Mary writes, why would the ACC want to settle? This is an easy question to answer, I believe. Go ahead, Doug.
Well, it's much like a divorce. Why would a spouse that doesn't want to get a divorce still go through with the process? It's all about business and all about negotiations. You don't want to be in business with somebody that doesn't want to be in business with you. Now, this nonsense about it being 500 million, 700 million, and it's, there's no way that their ACC is going to compromise. That's just not a reality. It certainly isn't for Florida State because the math doesn't work. We've gone through it on your earlier episodes. $300 million is really the break even point. If the ACC wants $350 million and they're not willing to compromise and come below that, then we will just be a disgruntled player in the system for as long as this lawsuit continues. Now, the litigation may result in a $350 million payment 18 months from now, but that would probably again have changed the math on what is a reasonable settlement now. The question is, does FSU want to pay X and does the ACC want to accept Y? And there are lots of reasons why the ACC might want to accept Y, and that is because if the number is high enough, everybody remains handcuffed except Clemson and Florida State. Or at least the other schools will know what their target for fundraising is.
And I believe that even though Clemson and Florida State may want the ACC to continue as is, in their heart of hearts, without us, I think it's beneficial that barrier to leave is lower to Florida State and Clemson, because that freeing up that many teams allows the other conferences that may want to bolster their leagues not feel like they're tearing a brother apart, like they're tearing the conference apart. Florida State and Clemson, I believe, want to have that bar be a little bit lower, so it's not just the two of them. And we'll see what happens with that. The longer this thing goes on, in my opinion, the number gets lower. Mm-hmm. So, for all of us that want this to happen right now, because we want to we want to be done with this. We want stability. We want to know we're out of here. We're disgruntled already. We want to be done with it. The divorce, we're done. But really, from Florida State's financial aspect, it's better that it goes on a little bit because the end result is going to be cheaper.
Well, and remember, this is a math problem for the ACC also. When they're talking about the damages portion, they're talking about the value of getting out. They're talking about the value of getting out now. If Florida State stays another year, then Florida State gets another payment into their coffers from the ACC. If they stay 2 more years, they get 2 more payments. And so that number of what is the future value of the contract continues to diminish. So that's why, again, I say Florida State can swallow the pill of $180, $200 million now. If this gets dragged out for 2 years, no, then we're not going to be paying $180 to $200 million, because as a percentage of the risk, as a percentage of the exposure, the cost has now gone down.
I do want to address one thing, clarify here. Almighty Finn writes, answering someone's question on how much the deal is worth. So this is what we're talking about, a few of the misconceptions. He writes 40 million times 12 years, meaning 2036. The exit fee, 620 million. Yes, that's what the ACC is asking, but the recently uncovered documents in disclosure showing that the ESPN is under no guaranteed agreement past 2026.
2026 season, correct.
The 2026 season means that the likely outcome, I'm not saying guaranteed, but a likely outcome if litigation were to go all the way through, would not be that Florida State owes the 40 million a year times 12 years. It would be Florida State owes 40 million a year till through the 2036 season, and they would have all their rights. That's what I read into it. What is that correct? Am I on the right track there? Likely.
Yeah, it depends on what ESPN does. As I've said, I personally, I am sufficiently confident in my interpretation of the grant of rights. The grant of rights says Florida State is obligated to do anything and everything required to fulfill the ESPN agreement. If there is no ESPN agreement after the 2026 season, then there is no obligation to adhere to the grant of rights. They didn't write it in such a way to reflect what they've argued it says, which is we have your rights until 2036. The neat thing about writing a contract is you can write it to say exactly what you want and what you intended. And if you choose not to use those words, then the court is going to presume that you didn't use those words on purpose. And the reason why that's not what the grant of rights says is because no school would have signed that agreement. So in order to try to make it more palatable, they watered down the language to say, well, we have an agreement with ESPN. We need this to work with ESPN. You want ESPN. So as long as ESPN's in the picture, you're going to cooperate with us. Once ESPN's out of the picture, there's nothing to cooperate with.
Keep in mind that what Ryan was alluding to is all of the years from 2027 through 2036 had no dollars attached to them at all. Those lines in the ledger are blank.
Correct.
So there's no financial obligation, or there's no financials in that time frame. So if Florida State was going to be on the hook for those years, that hook would be $0.
And remember, this is something that everybody seems to always forget when we talk about the future numbers. It's not a lump sum payment. These are what get paid out over the years. So even if the courts rule against Florida State, they don't get a judgment against them for $540 million, $620 million. They just have to stay. So how much is it worth Florida State to buy back that confusing and misinterpreted agreement from the ACC? Now, if ESPN wanted to get involved and fix everything for the conference, they could sign the extension today. They could make an announcement, Friday afternoon news dump. Hey, by the way, guys, we have signed the extension. We are tied to the ACC through 2036. We think it is a fantastic business deal. After offloading two high-priced reporters that had been with the conference or the network for too long, we freed up enough capital. We can commit to the ACC to 2036. Florida State's mountain just got a lot taller to climb.
The ACC just had the kickoff days. What a perfect time to announce that the ESPN deal is done and everything's hunky-dory. They had the cameras there. They had the media there. They had everybody there to give all the positive news. There is no positive news on that front.
And you don't think that Phillips would have wanted that? You don't think Phillips worked hard behind the scenes to make that happen? And the fact that it didn't happen should give you all the inference you need to understand where ESPN is today.
Instead, he had to talk about how. Sorry, Ryan. Instead, he had to talk about how Florida State and Clemson were disruptive, and that the ACC had no interest in settling.
Right.
I do want to bring up a question because, well, not really a question. Tomcat writes, when they order full discovery, then we get some action. So here's the thing, Tomcat. The lawyers on both sides have a full unredacted copy of the agreement. The only people that don't have the full agreement is the Attorney General's office, who got a heavily redacted copy of the agreement. So right now, full discovery, they have full discovery. The FSU lawyers have it in their hands for the most part.
As far as the contract
goes, there's nothing more. The only thing they don't have is like who said what to who, conversations.
That's where things get uncomfortable. The depositions are what the officers are going to want to avoid, because once they start speaking into a microphone after raising their hand and swearing to tell the truth, that's when things get dicey. Look, I've handled hundreds of depositions. I don't ever want to be deposed. I don't ever want to be asked, what did I say? What did I mean when I sent this, or when I typed that, or can you please confirm that this is the email that you sent on this date? I don't ever want to do that. That's when things get really uncomfortable. You make a great point, Ryan. The written discovery, the contracts have been exchanged, but first what happens is you propound written discovery to both parties, which I'm sure they already have. So that's the second part of this. The attorneys know what each side's questions are. You then answer those written discovery questions, which account for about 80% or 90% of the framework of the deposition you're about to give. And then that last 15, 10%, 15% of questioning is based on what the attorneys learn from those written discovery responses.
Yep. And we
Ryan, if you would have to give out all of your emails and have to talk about the emails you sent, you should be worried.
You don't want to see the boys group text. I'm just saying. Now, Doug, one last fun thing before we let you go, because we want to make sure we get to all the other.
Oh, he's got time tonight.
Oh, you do? Well,
we still got to talk about Ireland next.
We're going to talk
about
only
on the first part.
You just got me excited. I thought we only had you on the hook for the law part. I do want to ask you, though. I already gave my opinion. I don't think there's obviously, and I think it's fun to think about, but no connection. Vince probably agrees with me. Any comments on the Robert Griffin III thing that we covered at the beginning of the show? Any comment at all?
So this all went down while I was driving today, so I haven't had a chance to really get into it. I read one article on it. I saw Sam Ponder's comment about the Olympic athlete and that situation. So I ascribe to the theory that there are no coincidences. If you look at the terminations at ESPN, they frequently are the more senior writers, the more senior personalities who command a higher premium. So whether it's in retribution for Florida State comments, whether Paul Feinbaum really is that soft and demanded that action be taken, or it's simply a cost-cutting measure, neither one bodes well for ESPN and what we have going forward with our discussions in this litigation.
My guess is that the Sam Ponder, what she talked about, I wouldn't think that was it, because if that was the case, Kirk Herbstreit gave double middle finger to everyone out there on that topic. And
yes, so, he did.
But he might be, who knows? He might be, too big to.
He's untouchable.
Yeah. So I don't think that's it.
Or so he thinks.
Yeah. But Ben could be fired. The dog. We got to get
rid of him. Ben. Right. Ben could be fired.
All right, let's get into our other topics. Vince, let's pop up some exciting stuff you got for us about Ireland.
Okay, so I got a text earlier today from Mr. Doug Rohan to provide some information about what's going to be happening in Dublin. And we've been teasing this a little bit, but I'm going to bring this up. There's going to be a meetup in Dublin on Friday, August 23rd at 12 p.m. Dublin time, people. Dublin time.
All times are local.
All times are local. I went and looked at the website for this place. Looks like some great brews here. Mm-hmm. And we will be having a meetup there with Double Fries No Slaw, Doug Rohan and Garnet Noles, a joint meetup. So Doug, talk about this. I know you've been a little bit more involved with this in the background. I've just been waiting for the info to be able to share.
Well, we are jumping the gun just a little bit. We are waiting for one final piece of confirmation. So before it goes out on Twitter, we can share it here with your team because they're listening and they're hearing me right now. But before we go live on Twitter, we are waiting for one more managerial approval.
That I did not know.
No, you didn't. You were not aware. But for those of you who are listening to this, stay tuned. This is a draft of what we're anticipating putting out. Whether it's the time zone change or what the issue is, that just the communication has lagged, but we have been actively working with the restaurant and the pub just to make sure that, everything is set appropriately and that everybody's happy with it. So we're very excited with it. They have been very responsive to our questions and our requests. So we are just waiting for final confirmation that, again, we're inside of 9 days or 8 days from the 23rd. So we don't have too much more time to get the word out. But yes, we're very excited about this. Regardless of whether this is finalized or not, leave time in your calendar for 12 noon to 3 o'clock, because we've already set aside, all three of us already have that time set aside. But yeah, the expectation is we're going to get together, have lunch, hang out, and then do a joint live pod. So that we can have a chance to talk a little bit about the game coming up, what our thoughts are about Kirk Herbstreit and the college game day, which that's the other big news. We are confirmed they are not being chicken and hiding inside the stadium for college game day. They will be out on the Temple Green.
So Vince, real quick, I do want to specify one thing because it can be a little confusing if you've never been to Ireland. I've never been to Ireland. The Temple Bar is an area.
An area.
Although there is a bar called the Temple Bar. So if you saw Temple Bar, that's the area, the block area, and then the Porterhouse is the actual bar name. what's crazy is, and if you're an FSU fan, this is going to be the holy triumph. I mean, all the shows are going to be doing shows live streaming from the Temple Bar area, greater area.
Correct.
And so, man, if you're a Florida State fan and you're passionate about the Noles, you literally can just walk the streets and see nothing but your favorite shows, all your fans, I mean, it's going to be an amazing time. And I'm not going to be there. Vince is going to be there. Doug's going to be there. I will live vicariously through them, and I hope to see some really amazing footage from you guys.
Yeah, this is going to be ground zero for
who's
the
excited?
FSU fans. Mm-hmm.
Who's excited about that? I'm excited about that. I'm so excited. I'm going to gift 5 memberships to the channel right now. They are live in the chat. If you want to go grab one, they're available for you to grab. This is EarthCam Live, Dublin. We're going to be right there, Doug.
I love it.
We're going to be,
and I'll commit to you. We should do a members only, you and me, live stream at some point if we can make that work with technology. You'll need to be a member to catch some time that Vince and I just get some time to ourselves to bring you some of the merriment and some of the stories of what we're seeing over there. So make sure you take those memberships and take full advantage of them and share them with all of your friends as well. Tell them that we'll do a members only show and we'll give you a little bit behind the scenes look of what's going on over there.
The best thing that could happen to you guys in that show and talking about technology is I will be here creating the shows, the graphics, sending you guys the links to making it as easy as possible. So it'll be a one touch. You guys jump in and I'll have everything ready to go for me for both of you.
I love that. And I've been promising people on Facebook, I'm a member of a number of groups involved with the Marching Chiefs, the Noles in general, whatever, saying I'm so jealous I don't get to go. Those of you that are going, can you send some pictures? And I've promised multiple people that we are just going to pop up some live shows every now and then just to show the vibe.
Absolutely. So excited for the event. And here's the thing, guys. One bit more of a Garnet and Old announcement. Not really an announcement, but something really exciting. Vince, I'm going to show what you've been working on graphics-wise, and it's really fun because Vince works really hard on our imagery and our sponsors and graphics and all that fun stuff. So take a look at the Garnet and Old Fall 24 schedule. So you got the live, obviously, from Dublin. We got Game Day live in Tallahassee. Vince and I will both be there for Labor Day. Man, we got the Memphis game, the Cal game, pregame, postgame, coverage all throughout. We have two guys, live shows in Jacksonville, Florida at the Fishweir Brewing Company in Riverside, Jacksonville. And that's going to be a lot of fun. We have so many events live in person, chances for you guys to hang out with us. So Vince, thank you for putting together all the graphics and everything you do. And thank you for also putting the QR code on my belly. That makes me very happy.
Canva is my friend. I'll just say that. Canva is my friend.
Now, one other announcement, one more Garnet Old announcement. We're going all in, Vince.
Do I know this one, or is this a Ryan special?
Not next week, because that's Ireland. Vince is going to be preoccupied. But after that, our normal cadence on our Thursday shows, a half an hour before our live shows every Thursday at 7 o'clock. Every other week, we are going to do a 6:30 members only show that leads right into the Garnet and Old show, so that there's predictability, that the members that you guys sign up for know, hey, I can go right in from members only. That show ends, hop in the full Garnet and Old show at 7 o'clock. And so we're going to start doing that to give some predictability instead of just kind of us picking when's a good time. We're just doing an hour and a half of content every Thursday instead of an hour.
Absolutely.
And this team will give you plenty of that content. It's going to be
We're going to
have
lots of stuff to talk about. Brian?
Yeah, we got a super chat here.
I'm waiting for the sounder.
Oh, yeah. So here's the thing. I am terrible at being prepared on audio. But
the loyalty to the program, Jimbo.
Where's
the loyalty to the program, Jimbo?
Well, the loyalty to the program is Kerry Knowles gifting almost $10. I like the $9.99. That's great.
Yep.
Spot the damn ball already. I cannot agree more.
Can't wait.
Knowles. Isn't it weird? It doesn't. It's next week, you see it on the calendar. Obviously, you have your plane tickets, but has it actually hit you guys yet that it's like we're kicking off?
It has hit me, and the reason why it's hit me lately is because I've been packing, first of all, but also we're getting some really a tick up in positivity with the offense as far as the practice reports are coming.
We sure do.
So if we were all, leading into the fall camp, we're all talking about what are these receivers going to be? What is this even going to look like? Now that they're out of fall camp and they're in installation for Georgia Tech, you're seeing more consistency because they're not just trying to do everything right now. So I know, Ryan, you've been following the reports. Doug, have you been following the reports?
Day, yeah.
I know you've been
Absolutely.
busy.
Yeah. No, when I do 10 hours worth of road trips, I get to catch up on all the season previews heading up to North Carolina. But I am running out of time tonight. So the only other thing I was going to mention was you're running out of time if you're watching this to register for the Rohan Law Fan Experience. So if you do want some heads up as to what we'll be doing and where we're going to be, that's the earliest and easiest way to catch a glimpse of what at least Rohan is doing. So go ahead and click on the link that I'm sure y'all will be able to provide down below in the chat. And go ahead and register. We've got almost 100 people now, 100 families represented in that chat. So we're really excited about that. But if you want to, now's your time to go ahead and get plugged in, and we'll make sure that you get all the information. We're going to be doing some coordination, some chants. I've got some videos coming out this week, so we'll make sure that we share that with everybody. But register now so we make sure that you're part of the planned programming for the College Game Day experience.
The link for that is in the show notes under the YouTube description. So if you've not already signed up for that, please do that. And I know, Doug, you said, it's mainly meant for people that are going to be there. But if you want to keep up with what we're doing there, you absolutely could click that link and be part of it as well.
Also,
someone asked if they were going to spam, if we were going to spam them or sell their information. No, this is just for Ireland and for this experience. I'm not going to lie. You may get a once a month newsletter from Rohan Law just to keep us top of mind. But beyond that, this is really going to be concentrated and focused on just the Ireland experience.
And that's beautiful. I keep the good times rolling, talking about practice. Before you head out, Doug, tell us, man, how do I get you to be my guy on my worst day?
I have had a couple people now reaching out. It's starting to become more consistent. We're getting 2 or 3 calls per week of just fans that watch us on your pod saying that, we want to talk to you because even though I don't have a Georgia case, I've got something happening in Mississippi or Florida, and I want your help and I want your feedback. And we're happy to provide that. Picking an attorney is very important. You should not go based on which billboard you see most frequently. We want to make sure that for your specific case, for your specific situation, that we can get you plugged into the right person. Obviously, if it's in Georgia, obviously, if you're in Atlanta, we had a great event at the Atlanta Seminole Club last weekend and got to meet a bunch of our fans and viewers there. Then definitely I'm here to be your best friend on your worst day for whatever's happening. But even if it's something going on somewhere else, give us a call and we'll make sure that you get plugged in with a good attorney.
Doug, that's for you, my brother.
The jacket, the Marching Chiefs jacket?
Yeah, that's for you.
Celebrating hymn night.
Well, we're going to continue the good times talking about practice. But, Doug, thanks for coming on.
Always
everyone,
a pleasure.
Thank you, Doug. We'll see you next time. And we got a lot more going on because we had, from what all intents and purposes, we've heard was the best offensive practice yet to date in the lead up to the season, which is great news. All you hear now is first DJ Uyunglele is looking sharp as ever, and Malik Benson has distanced himself as a clear number one. We're going to be getting our depth chart soon, Vince. This is exciting stuff.
It really is exciting. We were looking for some light as far as the passing game is concerned. I don't think, Ryan, you weren't concerned with the running game.
No,
I wasn't concerned. I wasn't concerned with the running game. The offensive line is going to be, great.
I would say the offensive
Maybe.
line is going to be the best we've had in over a decade.
Oh, I agree with you. So I wasn't worried about that. The question was, even if you have a great offensive line and your running game is great, you start playing the better teams and you're only a one-dimensional team, then what are you going to do if they find a way to slow down the running game? Well, this week we've had some growing up in terms of the receiving core, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, Malik looked great. Elijah Moore, Vince. There's very few things about Florida State football that get me more excited than when a very, very young player shows up and outperforms some of the older members of the team. Because then you're just thinking to yourself, and you probably think the same way as me. If I see, like, I'm not using just Elijah, just in general, Vince, if I see a freshman or redshirt freshman anywhere listed as an or an and on a depth chart, I'm like, beautiful, because he's going to be here for a minimum the next 2 years. That's what goes through my head. Is like, this is great, because if they ball out, we know what to look forward to the next couple years, and I am really excited, honestly, about Elijah. My guy, Ja'Kai Douglas. Ja'Kai, he's still doing his thing, and I think you've always been a big Kentron guy, right?
Yeah, it's time. It's time for Kentron. It's time for Darion, and of course, Darion was hurt a lot too. So
Yeah.
it's not that he didn't have the ability. He's been hampered for years. It seems like. But if you see a freshman, like you said, on the depth chart, when that didn't happen in 2013 and 2012 and 2000, it didn't matter how great you were.
Yeah.
If you were under the Jimbo staff and you were a freshman, you were not on the field.
A perfect example of this is late in Jimbo's tenure, having an Auden Tate or Tamarian Terry who were on the roster, right? Sit. Those kind of things were always baffling to most Florida State fans, but it's easier to always get on the field as an offensive player than as a defensive player early on in your career, unless you're a cornerback. Cornerbacks sometimes can find their way on. But what I'm saying is, and I do want to mention a shout out to, as Chris Fowler would name him, Deuce Spawn.
Yep.
Also shown out in camp. But Vince, it's not even what I'm most excited about. All those players, I love them all. Tight ends, Vince. When Mike Norvell got hired, as one would do, you go and you pull up Memphis highlights, right, before he even coaches a game. And what you saw in those Memphis highlights were incredible running backs and a whole lot of tight end action. I'm talking the seams. I'm talking little digs, little cut, little outside drags. That's what you saw out of a Mike Norvell offense, is a lot of play action after running the ball and hitting big ass tight ends for first downs. And I've been waiting, not that we haven't had good tight end play, but it hasn't been what I expected initially. And I think this year we're about to get, I'm talking the best tight end play we've had since Mr. the Bears boy himself. Did you know that was his grandson?
The Golden Cub. I've heard that. Is Kyle Morlock the specific grandson of someone that we all know? I don't know. Maybe he is. That what you're talking about is, Mike Norvell coming into his own in terms of building the roster up the way he wants it to be. Last year was great. The year before was better than it had.
Look, I don't want to interrupt you too, but it's right. Would you agree, though, that Mike Norvell's offense actually normally and more frequently throughout the seasons will look more like 2 years ago than last year?
Probably yes, because you had once he knew that he was going to have trouble running the ball, then you have to shift gears, right? Which I think, a lot of coaches have a problem with, because they're only, I don't want to call them a one-trick pony, but but they get out of their comfort zone, and then
It's their system. They want to.
Then it becomes muddled. They don't have any rhythm. They don't have any rhythm with the play calling. I think you're right, Ryan. I think what's about to happen this year is the right combination of run, pass, and incorporating tight end scenario, backs out of the backfield. I think we're going to see what Mike Norvell is kind of all about, kind of his 80% what he would love to do.
And if I was Mike Norvell last year, I'm just going to be honest, I probably wouldn't have had to scheme it up like I like to do every other year, because when you have two freaks at wide receiver, then you can just, hey Jordan, yeah, let's hit that guy one-on-one. How's about we just do that? That's great, because it's going to be a touchdown probably. And so you do that, but I think that's not Mike Norvell's default. I think when he has a normal team, not that the receivers on this team won't end up being amazing. They could be. But if you are surrounded by, let's say, above average receivers, which I believe 3 to 4 of these guys will be above average, then I think Mike Norvell goes back to his default of, okay, set, run, set up. Okay, I've shown you this look 6 times, and it's been the same play. And now this time, it's a flea flicker. That's what he likes to do.
Yeah, I think he's going to enjoy inflicting some of that, death by 1,000 cuts to people this year. For people to say that, it's just, each season's different. I think he's going to have a different edge about him this year, and he should. That's going to be really exciting to see.
You mean he's not all cried out?
No, his whiny tears are not. They're not really about being whiny, are they? There are 67 people watching right now, and we have 34 likes. That math ain't mathin'. And now that I've said that, please go hit the thumbs up. But also to remind everybody, this season we're also going to have Parker Rollin on quite a bit to talk about is that mathin' as far as the coaching is concerned. So we're talking about the coaching a lot.
Now, Parker, we're not going to say we can't say the company, but his profession, actually what he does for his job, is analytics for college football for certain teams.
Correct.
And he's part of the Garden.
That's all you need to know. It's all you need to know. And he lays it out for us. When we think, oh, what a stupid call on 4th down, Parker will be able to say, no, that's actually the right call there. Just because the play didn't work out the way you wanted it to doesn't make it a bad call. But anyway, I wanted to bring that up because some folks were asking me, are we going to have our analytic genius on the show this fall? And we absolutely are.
And he will be there many times when we're doing our show live from Doe Campbell. In addition to the offensive line being what I think will be the best offensive line we've had since 2013, same goes, Vince. I think our defensive backfield, I think we were more top-heavy loaded in 2013 and 14 with defensive backs. But if you talk total number of players that could start in most teams in the country in whole, so you're talking right now, I'm talking solid to good to great mass versus a very top-heavy, amazing elite group. I could see this cornerback room and this DB room, Vince, being the deepest, maybe even equal to what we had in 2013 and 2014.
Yeah, if you're comparing it to, high-end star power, 2013
right
probably gets the edge because, we've all seen the graphic.
Yeah.
22 of them played in the pros.
Yeah.
So that's going to be tough to beat. But if you're talking about, top to bottom depth chart, maybe second string through third string. Yeah. It's the deepest that I can remember. And it's something that is going to pay huge dividends throughout the season as these younger guys that are even getting the hype now, like they're playing now as far as getting reps with the ones and all that kind of stuff. As the season goes on, Mike knows how to find the talent. And when you're building a culture, the more people that are, Ryan, you and I have talked about this over and over again. The more of a higher percentage you have of people buying into the culture, the faster the new people catch on.
Yes.
So
And by new people, I want to welcome a new person to the Garden Old Show, who by the chat we welcome all fans, clearly a Georgia
we
Tech fan.
do.
But what's interesting is Slinky says going to be a deja vu from last year in Dublin, I think. Well, we beat Georgia Tech last year. So
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah.
sure what's going on there. I don't follow the chat very often, but it looks like
welcome to
Slinky
the Garden.
has,
Hey, thanks as a
yeah,
Georgia Tech fan for
regardless.
watching Florida State podcast. That's awesome. We appreciate
Slinky,
it.
if you don't mind, go hit the like button. I mean, it's the least you can do if you're going to be here and kind of stir the pot a little bit. Go like it.
Yeah, and subscribe. Hey, become a YouTube member. There's nothing greater that gives me joy in life than non-Florida State fans taking time at 7 o'clock at night on a Thursday to watch an opposing team's podcast. I think that's really dedication to the enjoyment of other teams that you
I appreciate
don't
it.
care about. Yeah, it's awesome.
Slinky did like it. I appreciate that. That is a person that is going to be, you know, if you're going to come in here and troll a little bit, and you liked it, we're good. We're
Now I'm
good.
just confused.
Whatever.
Oh yeah,
Not
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, we are correct. That's what I meant. We beat Georgia Tech's ACC. I appreciate that in 22. Yeah, we sure did. But Vince, any other things you want to say? We're transitioning. We're going to do our next week's show. First of all, you're going to be in Ireland,
Mhm.
but we're going to do a blowout talk about Florida State Georgia Tech. That's going to be really the
Absolutely.
only focus.
Yeah.
Wrap up your overall take. Wrapping up camp.
I'm happy. I would say I'm happy. I'm expectant of what I thought the talent would warrant. So, for example, when you put all the pieces together and you have great pieces, the end result of that is not always great, as we know. But because of the staff and the way they've built the program and built the culture, I am happy, and I'm expecting for the sum of the parts to be great here. It's not going to look, like it will ultimately look during the first game of the season, because we all know first games are kind of strange. But you're going to see glimpses of it early on, and one of the glimpses you're going to see is how great the running game is going to be. Somebody mentioned in the chat a little bit ago that we were talking about the offense with this fall camp and being maybe a little quote unquote concerned because we weren't hearing a lot of great reports from them. But you got to remember who they were going up against.
Yep. And I will
that
say
defense is going to be really, really good. And Georgia Tech, like you mentioned last week's show, their defense was less than good last year. And they are not going to take a monumental, epic leap in one season. So our offense is going to be going up against a defense that is not the same as what they're seeing every day in practice.
My only take, because I was pretty honest about what I thought about the offense and the defense this whole time. My main take, guys, is I believe Florida State's scout team defense is probably giving them a better idea and better challenge of being Georgia Tech in the training right now than Georgia Tech will. I think our scout team is better than Georgia Tech's defense. So, and the offense in our camp has been playing against the starters for Florida State most of the season. So I think, honestly, Vince, I'm going to give my final score prediction next week.
Next week, yeah.
We did W's and L's. Yeah, we did W's and L's, I think, like 2 or 3 weeks ago. But I'm feeling more confident in my win than last time. And I think the score that I give next week will reflect such.
Yeah, I'm pretty confident in the game, and we'll talk more about that next week, like you said. The last thing I'll say before we get out of there, because I think we're going to be getting out of here pretty soon, right, Ryan, is that the Marching Chiefs are prepping as we speak for Dublin, and not only Dublin, but for the whole season. So if you are in Tallahassee, by the way, and you are interested, or you're going through the campus and you're hearing the Chiefs play, or you're hearing Big 8 play or whatever, it's them. They're there. They're practicing right now in the ungodly heat. So I'm anxious to see them as well.
Perfect. And hey, everyone, thank you so much tonight for watching. We got so much Ireland and Florida State, Georgia Tech coverage coming up. It's not even funny. Thanks again, Doug, for joining the show and giving us the rundown. We love Doug, and we have so much more coming up this season for all of you out there, including some really, really fun live events and tailgating action live from Doe Campbell soon to be. But next week is Dublin. We kick off in 9 days. Vince, you'll be walking in to watch Florida State play in Ireland in 9 days. I know that's weird to think about, but it's right there. But
It
Vince,
might be 70 degrees, maybe.
even in Ireland, I say screw ESPN eternally. And always, I say Garnet and Old, no inside info, no contacts, and no problem. But always, Vince, as always, what do we say?
Send Chiefs all the damn time, and we will see everybody in Dublin, hopefully next week. Ryan, you're going to handle it from home. I appreciate you, brother.
My pleasure. Be well, everyone. Have a great week. We'll see you next week for kickoff of Florida State Georgia Tech in Ireland. Go Noles.